I'd been on a dating app for a while, swiping and matching without much success. Then, to my surprise, I connected with a girl named Sophie, and things seemed different. She was witty, charming, and our conversations flowed effortlessly. Within just 3 days of talking, she suggested we meet up, and I couldn't have been more excited. I'd been thinking about our date all day, from choosing the perfect outfit to imagining how our evening would go. As the hours passed, my excitement grew, and I was ready to meet this intriguing woman who had captured my attention. The moment came. I got in my car and eagerly punched in the GPS coordinates Sophie had sent. But as I followed the directions, my excitement began to dwindle. The route seemed to lead far out of town, deep into the woods. I couldn't help but think this was a peculiar choice. For a first date, Sophie texted to explain that we'd be meeting at her dad's cabin, which raised even more red flags. I hesitated but didn't want to pass up the chance at what could have been a special connection. So, I continued driving further into the wilderness. The road grew narrower, the woods closing in around me. The sun was setting, and shadows loomed ominously as I approached the cabin. It was a small, isolated structure surrounded by dense trees. A sense of unease settled in my stomach. Sophie was waiting outside, but her demeanor seemed off. Her smile was strained, and her eyes hinted at something I couldn't quite grasp. She invited me inside, and as I stepped through the cabin door, the feeling of dread intensified. The interior was dimly lit, with strange symbols and unsettling artwork adorning the walls. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't ignore the increasing sense that something was terribly wrong. Sophie's voice took on a sinister tone as she began to talk about things she shouldn't possibly know, personal secrets I had never shared. Panic surged through me, and I tried to leave, but she blocked the exit. It was as if I had walked into a trap in the middle of nowhere. As the night grew darker, my fear escalated. I knew I had to escape this eerie cabin and the unsettling encounter with Sophie. It was only when my phone rang loudly, startling both of us, that I had an opportunity to make a break for it. I rushed past her and ran into the woods. The chilling atmosphere only seemed to grow more oppressive as I navigated my way back to civilization. The night felt endless, and I was certain that Sophie's sinister agenda was far from over. When I finally arrived home, exhausted and trembling, my heart sank. My house had been ransacked, and a terrifying note lay on my nightstand. It read, "You can't escape me, no matter where you run." The chilling realization set in, that Sophie was no ordinary stranger. She was a relentless, malevolent force, determined to haunt me. The fear that I would never truly escape her clutches left me in a state of perpetual terror, forever imprisoned in a nightmarish web of online connections gone terribly wrong. I decided to finally give into my friend's constant pestering and download Tinder. It had been a year since my girlfriend left me, and I was ready to get back into the dating game. I created a profile, swiped through countless profiles, and had my fair share of conversations with various girls that never seemed to lead anywhere. Then, one day, I matched with a girl who seemed different. Her name was Sarah, and we hit it off right away. We chatted for hours, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. It was refreshing after a string of uninspiring interactions. After talking for 2 weeks, Sarah suggested we meet up. I was both excited and nervous, but I agreed. However, she wanted to meet at very odd times and in strange places. Our first meetup was at 3 a.m. in an abandoned amusement park. It was eerie, but I was so desperate and lonely that I didn't think twice. As I arrived, I saw Sarah standing under a flickering street light, and something about her just felt off. Her smile seemed forced, and her eyes were devoid of emotion. We walked through the decaying park, and every step sent shivers down my spine. The rustling of leaves in the wind, and the distant laughter of children on rusted swings added to the creepy atmosphere. We sat on a broken-down roller coaster, and that's when things took a terrifying turn. Sarah's demeanor changed completely. She stared at me with a malevolent grin, and her voice turned cold and emotionless. She began talking about things she shouldn't know. Personal secrets I had never shared with anyone. I panicked and tried to leave, but she blocked my way. It was as if she had supernatural strength. The amusement park, once abandoned, now felt like a prison. I was trapped with this girl who had become a stranger. The encounter went from bad to worse, and I feared for my life. But then, just as things were about to get even darker, my phone rang loudly, startling us both. It was a call from a friend who knew about my meeting with Sarah. In a moment of panic, she released me, and I sprinted out of the park. I never saw Sarah again, and I uninstalled Tinder immediately. My terrifying encounter had left me shaken, questioning reality and the dangers of online dating. It's a story I've shared with my friends as a cautionary tale, reminding them that sometimes it's better to stay alone than take a leap of desperation. The experience haunted me, and I found it difficult to trust people I met online. It took a long time for me to rebuild my confidence and dip my toes back into the dating world. But one thing was clear: I would be far more cautious next time, no matter how lonely I felt. I had been hearing my friends' relentless encouragement to try a dating app for months, and eventually, curiosity got the best of me. It had been a while since my last relationship, and I felt the need to re-enter the dating world. After setting up my profile and swiping through various options, I matched with a girl named Mia. Mia was different from the other matches I'd had. She seemed quirky and fun, which was a breath of fresh air compared to the uninspiring conversations I'd experienced previously. After some friendly banter and discovering a shared love for movies, we decided to meet up for a date. The unusual part was her insistence on meeting at a movie theater. I thought it was a peculiar choice for a first date, but Mia was adamant, saying she'd be there once the movie started. Although I found it a bit strange, I agreed. As I entered the dimly lit theater, the movie had already begun, and the previews had started. I tried to find Mia but couldn't locate her in the dark. Just as I was about to settle into an empty seat, a random guy stumbled into the theater. He looked disheveled and distressed, but I assumed it was just a coincidence. However, as the movie progressed and the previews continued, his behavior grew increasingly erratic. He mumbled to himself, fidgeting nervously, and my unease grew with each passing moment. Then, during a tense scene in the movie, the guy suddenly leaped from his seat, letting out a bone-chilling scream. Panic rippled through the theater as people rushed for the exits. The lights flickered on, revealing chaos. In the midst of the commotion, Mia was nowhere to be seen. My heart raced as I joined the frantic crowd heading for safety. The guy's unnerving outbursts echoed in my ears. As I fled the theater, I never crossed paths with Mia again, and I uninstalled the dating app that evening. This eerie experience had left me deeply shaken and made me question the world of online dating more than ever. It was a stark reminder that a seemingly ordinary evening could spiral into a horrifying encounter. For months, I had been navigating the treacherous world of dating apps with little to show for it. Match after match came and went, leaving me with a growing sense of disillusionment. Then, as the days grew warmer and summer approached, a glimmer of hope emerged on my screen. Her name was Emily, and our conversation started off casually. We chatted for a couple of days, and our connection began to deepen. She was intriguing and mysterious, and I found myself genuinely interested in her. Emily had a way of painting vivid pictures with her words, and I was captivated, but there was something strange about her. Emily was insistent on meeting in a park, and not just any park, but a park late at night. It struck me as an odd choice, and my hesitation grew with every exchange. Meeting someone you've only conversed with online, in the middle of the night, felt far from a typical first date. Yet, despite my reservations, I didn't want to let this opportunity slip through my fingers. The day we were supposed to meet arrived, and I couldn't shake my growing anxiety. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the park was cloaked in shadows. I arrived with a sense of trepidation, uncertain about what awaited me. As I walked through the dimly lit park, my footsteps echoed in the eerie stillness of the night. The distant rustle of leaves and the whisper of the wind added to the eerie atmosphere. It felt as if I were walking into a scene from a horror movie. I spotted her standing under a flickering street light, and my anxiety grew stronger. Emily was nothing like her profile picture, and her demeanor was different. Her smile seemed forced, and her eyes were devoid of warmth. We walked deeper into the park, and with each step, the unease within me grew. The park that was once a place of tranquility now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and hidden threats. The air grew colder, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. As we reached a secluded spot in the park, Emily's demeanor changed entirely. Her once charming personality gave way to malevolent, sinister presence. She stared at me with an unsettling grin, and her voice turned cold and emotionless. She began to speak about things she couldn't possibly know, personal secrets, fears, and insecurities that I'd never shared with her. Panic coursed through my veins, and I attempted to leave, but she blocked my path with an unnatural strength. The park had turned into a haunting prison, and I was trapped with a complete stranger who was not what she seemed. The encounter turned into a nightmarish ordeal, and I was gripped by an overwhelming sense of dread. Just when things seemed like they couldn't get any worse, my phone rang loudly, startling both of us. It was a call from a friend who knew about my meeting with Emily. In a moment of distraction, she released me, and I made a frantic escape from the park. I never saw Emily again, and I immediately uninstalled the dating app. This chilling encounter left me traumatized, questioning the authenticity of online connections and the potential dangers of online dating. It took a long time to rebuild my confidence and trust in the digital world of dating. I never saw Emily again, and I immediately uninstalled the dating app. The chilling encounter had left me shaken, and it made me question the authenticity of online connections and the potential dangers of online dating. It took a long time to rebuild my confidence, and I found myself constantly glancing over my shoulder in fear. Months passed, and the chilling memory of that night still haunted me. The dating app remained deleted, and I shied away from any form of online connection. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. One night, as I lay in bed, a message notification pinged from my phone. My heart raced as I saw the name on the screen. Emily. I hadn't reinstalled the app, and yet, here was a message from the person who had brought terror into my life. The message read, "You can't escape. My dear, I know where you are." Panic washed over me, and I frantically checked the locks on my doors and windows. As I sat trembling in the darkness, a haunting whisper echoed in the stillness of the night. "It'll always find you." The chilling realization set in, that Emily was no ordinary stranger. She was a relentless, malevolent force, determined to haunt me. The fear that I would never truly escape her clutches left me in a state of perpetual terror, forever imprisoned in a nightmarish web of online connections gone terribly wrong. I'd always considered myself relatively lucky when it came to dating apps. Most of my meetups had been fairly uneventful, and I'd even managed to score a few free dinners along the way. But one fateful night, my experiences took a terrifying turn that would haunt me for a long time to come. I matched with a guy named Max, and his profile was unlike any I'd seen before. He was incredibly attractive, but what struck me as odd was his reluctance to speak on the phone. It was a red flag, but my desperation for a free meal got the better of me, and I agreed to meet him without the usual pre-date call. As I prepared for the date, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Max seemed too good to be true, and I was convinced that I was in for a memorable evening. But when he walked into the restaurant, my heart plummeted. He looked nothing like the Max in his pictures. His eyes were cold and devoid of emotion, and a twisted grin played on his lips. His voice was eerily emotionless. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but the thought of a free dinner kept me seated. I was in for a night I'd never forget, but not in the way I had hoped. As we started talking, I noticed Max knew far too much about me. details I had never shared on my profile. Panic set in, and I attempted to leave, but Max blocked my way. His sinister agenda became evident. He was here for a reason, and it wasn't for a casual dinner. Max began discussing things no one should know, personal secrets that sent chills down my spine. It was clear he had a disturbing obsession with me. Desperation welled up as I desperately searched for an escape. From this nightmare. In a last-ditch effort to get away, I faked an urgent phone call, and Max reluctantly let me leave. I walked away from the restaurant, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was following me. Terrified, I darted into a nearby store and called a friend, who picked me up. Max's unsettling presence continued to haunt me, and I deleted the dating app immediately. The experience left me traumatized, and I began to question the authenticity of the online dating world. It was a harsh reminder that, sometimes, the pursuit of a free meal could lead to a life-altering encounter. This story serves as a chilling reminder that what seems like a golden opportunity can quickly turn into a horrifying ordeal. It made me incredibly cautious about meeting strangers online, regardless of how desperate I might feel. The fear of encountering another Max remains etched in my memory, serving as a constant reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the digital realm.